Dan. Welcome
Hello.
to The Takeaway.
Thank you.
My name's Eleanor for our listeners today, and you are Dan. Dan did the preaching for us on Sunday. It is now Wednesday. So Dan, tell us a little bit about the sermon. What was it about? Just a quick little, I remember it was on Romans 8, chapter 8, verses 31 to 34.
Good memory.
It was, thank you.
Well done. Yeah, so we're in part 7. And so we've split chapter 8 into 8 parts. And we into the final wrap-up of Paul's whole build-up and argument in chapter 8. So it's part 1 this week of kind of his conclusion, and then part 2 coming up this next week. And I think really what Paul is doing is that he kicks into like a different style of speaking in these last few verses. Whereas the previous 30 verses, he's really been going through these really specific doctrine, and he's really building his argument layer upon layer and introducing all these really pithy truths of the gospel. And now he kicks into a mode where he's really trying to land this home in his readers' hearts and in their minds. And how does this really apply to you? And how is this going to affect the way you live your life? And he asks these rhetorical questions. And I kind of imagined it as like he's like a defense lawyer in a courtroom, and he's bringing his argument to a crescendo. So we went through the first part of that this week.
Yes, I was in the sermon, and I was just reminding myself of things that really stood out to me. And the thing that stood out to me the most is you brought up this analogy of this mansion, and we could all relate to it because we all, many of us have been down to Kempton Park. So
Kempton Park?
You said Kempton. Sorry, Kempton.
Kempton Bay. No, Camps Bay. I mean, wherever you want a mansion to be.
You can have the mansion.
You can have a mansion in Kempton Park.
Think about a mansion where you want the mansion
right
to
under
be.
where the aeroplanes fly over your head. I mean,
I wouldn't want that. But you just spoke about your friend just inviting you to stay over at this mansion, and this house is just lovely, and your friend has said to you, come stay here, you have free reign to stay here. And when we enter this house, we're like, oh, I don't want to touch the food, or I don't want to, maybe you don't want to sleep on the bed. Maybe you get very self-conscious. And I really like that analogy, and it just reminded me about how we often just hesitate with God. And God has given us, he's adopted us into his sonship and daughterhood, and we hesitate to ask of God. And I find a lot of that in my life where I hesitate to ask of God because we're very independent. We're independent people. We forget that God is really for us. So I just really like that analogy that you brought up. Maybe we could,
Yeah, I think I resonate with what you're saying as well. I think it's that idea of trusting in who God is and his intentions towards us. And I think, it's that whole journey from the head to the heart. It's like we know that God is good. We sing about God being good on a Sunday. We trust that his purposes and his plans are good for us. But when we are in the depths of our week and facing a decision or an opposition or something tough, we don't always resonate deeply with the fact that God is on our side in that situation, and that we can ask him for his help in that small insignificant thing, or seemingly insignificant thing, as insignificant as the food in the fridge. If God can afford to send his son for us,
what more can he do for us?
He wants to be involved in our lives, and he wants to undertake on our behalf, and he wants to fight for us. And yet we can sort of think God doesn't care about this little thing, this meeting that I'm anxious about, or this financial thing that I need to bring him to. And I find myself in that position often thinking, I've been wrestling with this issue I've faced this week, and
Haven't brought it to
Now I'm
God.
only bringing it to God a couple of days later, or hadn't brought it to God yet, you know.
And you also said something. You said, when we ask, so maybe someone could be listening and they think, okay, I must always ask God what I want. I want a car, I wanted this, I wanted that. But how do we then move as Christians from always asking God for just what we want to what we need? Because we don't know, some people don't know that God is not like you said, it's not a prosperity gospel sermon. So how do we then move from that mindset to this new mindset?
Yeah. I think I've always kind of wrestled with that, the stuff that we have in our lives and how we acknowledge God as our provider. And some people are blessed with more, some people are blessed with less. And I think this passage is really trying to cut across all of that and make you try and understand, well, what actually is important when you look at the sum of your life. What are you concerned about in terms of God's provision for you? What are the things that are capturing your attention and capturing your heart? And that's where that context is so important. That when it says, won't he also give you everything, that it's in the context of everything that you need in this adventure with him. That would be the foremost desire and ambition and drive in our lives, our journey in and with him into his purpose, into Christ-likeness, into building his kingdom. And then we realize that, stuff is just stuff. Like, that's neither here or there, but we can trust God for the resources of heaven to work in and through us in these bigger things of life. And that's actually more exciting than you've always dreamed of getting a Toyota Tazz. Then you got your Toyota Tazz.
Is this your dream, Dan?
That was my dream. That was my second car. I had a really skadonk car, a Datsun Pulsar. I mean, it had character.
Got you from A to B.
Going from A to B. But my dream was to get a Toyota Tazz, and then eventually one day you get your Toyota Tazz, and I prayed and I asked God, and I believe he provided. But, I mean, that's not going to provide the purpose in life that he's put us here for, right? Those things are passing. They come and go. What do you think?
I think rather than... we should start asking God for things like, God, help us break free from sin. Or, God, help me break free from shame. Help me break free from all these things. Like, he's not just an external a God who works externally. He works internally. And in my life, I remember when I was younger, not younger. It was like 1 or 2 years ago. But anyways.
Last week.
I used to have like basically nightmares, and like I would just be so scared at night, and I didn't want to sleep, and I wouldn't even take afternoon naps because I used to just get a lot of like, it was just really scary, and I couldn't, sometimes it was very demonic, basically, to put it lightly.
Wow.
And then the one day I pray, and like, and you know that thing, if God is for us, who can be against us? That's something that when you were saying that this is the story I was getting reminded of. And I just kept on praying, and I'm like, God, how come you've given me this thing? And like, you're not taking this thing away from me. And I kept on complaining. And then one night I woke up, and it happened. And I woke up and I prayed, and I just prayed about it, and I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace. Then I opened my phone at 3 a.m. and I see this message come in, and in the message it was a verse, and in that verse it said, and they fled, because what I was experiencing was very demonic, and I just felt like there was a lot of demonic presence in my room. And in that verse it said, and they turned around and they fled. And that was the last time that I ever experienced what I was experiencing. Wow. And just reminded me that if God is for us, who can be against us? Wow. The best way to describe how I felt at night was terrorized. And if even in terror, he can. That's why you find people who are missionaries who go in and get arrested in the deepest, darkest pits, where they can still find joy in that season. Again, with Paul, I think it's Paul and Silas. I could be wrong. Where they were praying, and or was Paul and Peter? I don't know. Check your theory.
In Philippians, in the dungeon.
Exactly, in the dungeon.
Paul and Silas, you have it, right?
Thank you. Thanks, kids ministry. And that's why, I think with Paul, he is the greatest person in the Bible for me to tell us, if God is for us, who can be against us? Because he kept on experiencing pain and pain and pain. And that's when you can shift your mindset to just the small things. If God is for us in this pain, who can be against us? Because sometimes he doesn't take that pain away. So I think just thinking deeper about that and reminding ourselves. So that's my takeaway, basically. If God is for us, who can be against us? Even in pain, even in shame. Yeah. So that's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we need to talk through and wrestle through and understand, because we want to have this very literal formula in our heads. If God is for us, nothing can be against us. So nothing like pain or struggle or disease or danger or nothing like that's ever going to happen to us. And I don't think that's what the verse is trying to say. I think it's starting at the point of, firstly, our salvation and our position before God, to say that nobody can be against us in terms of that Satan can come and accuse us and say, he doesn't deserve your love, God. He doesn't deserve your forgiveness. He doesn't deserve to be covered by the blood of Jesus. But that question is settled once and for all. So I think there's like an element of Jesus' work that's already been complete for us. But then there's this element of his ongoing work in our lives. But there's times that we think that God should take away that suffering or that pain because it's real. And I think, Paul touched on that the previous week when he talked about God working in everything for the good of those who love him and called according to his purpose. And it's not about finally wrapping up all our sufferings into this bow at the end of our lives that we can see, actually it was this beautiful picture. But the beautiful picture is us becoming more like Christ. And I think it's sobering, because it is nice to try and say that if you follow God, life's going to be easier. And I don't think that's the gospel. As much as I would love it to be, I don't think that's the gospel.
What you're reminding us of today. On Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, and because it would be nice to preach that, because, you want to try and get everybody to come and experience just only good things and only positive things. But that's not it, But God is working Christ-likeness into us. He is working character into us. And he is working purpose through us. And he'll use those things in our lives. And for some of us, we only will see the fulfillment of all of that in eternity, I believe. That we won't always see the fulfillment of that on the side. But for many of us, we will. We'll see the character and the maturity that he's worked into us at play in the purposes that he wants to do here with us on earth.
And then with that, what then would be one truth you'd want to hold on for yourself or encourage people to hold on to for this week and going forth, not just for this week, but what is one truth that you think we can hold on to?
I think something that I'm holding on to is, with this passage, it's a powerful verse, and I almost felt like, it needs to be shouted. It needs to be really spoken with authority. But I also was cautious that we don't just get into the hype of it, because it's one of those verses that is encouraging and it stirs us up, but the hype of it can make us think that we are kind of in this position of strength, that God is on our side and we're gonna, take on every battle and we're gonna destroy things and we're gonna
Climb the corporate ladder with Jesus.
We're gonna, build these amazing things, and that can sometimes turn the attention back on us, And I think for me, it was realizing that the fact that God is for me, so who can be against me, points to the fact that He's for me in spite of my weakness. He's for me actually in spite of the fact that I probably don't have much to bring to this side of the equation. It actually doesn't matter how much I have to bring to my side of the equation. I need to be open to Him, and I need to be trusting Him and available to Him. And that is both sort of, okay, well, I don't, I want to be that strong person. But on the other hand, it's like, that's amazing. Like, God, you can work with me in my weakness. And just how you worked with David as a shepherd boy, just as you worked with Gideon as an insecure person, just as you worked with Moses, who stuttered and was lost in the wilderness for years and years and years. Like, those are people that you worked in spite of who they were, not because of who they were. And I think that's the encouraging thing that I want to take out of this today. It's because of how strong He is that no one can be against us.
I think for me, just holding on to that hope. Often when I chat to my friends, I always tell them, when they're going through stuff, I can't tell you if the stuff that you're going through is going to stop happening, or maybe God will come through in the way you want Him to come through. But the one thing that I can hold on to is to hope in Jesus Christ. And if we don't have that hope, what are we going to have? And whether that hope that one day we're going to be with Jesus, that hope that one day in the suffering, in my suffering, other people can be brought to Christ. So that's just my reminder this week to hold on to that hope. Yeah, so that brings us to the end of the takeaway. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.
It was a really good sermon. Love a good chat.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.